Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, one and all. Welcome to another edition of The Smoking Barrel. I'm Rustin Edwards, based in Geneva, with Matt Stanley in Dubai, who has turned into his name, Matt Stanley.
Sorry.
There he is.
Oh, I
Hello.
just realised. Sorry. Greetings, everyone. Well, third day in the trot. Well, I mean, it's justified as well. Right. Let's before we get going, let's start with flat price. Where are you? You
Flat
know,
price is holding right around $84 in front month Brent, 1,048 for gas oil in the front month.
yeah,
There's been a lot of
exactly.
volatility in the oil markets as headlines are driving some action, as well as probably some profit taking. I mean, I think at least from my perch is what I see. You probably have a lot of people who ride the wave higher during the day, and then as they get ready to go home, they take their profits and they say thank you very much, and they come to the next day to do the exact same thing.
Yeah, and I think as well, you know, I think there'll be some sort of options that are being exercised right at these levels, with flat price being at 85, some call options that are kind of um, coming in, and then some gamma hitting, and then it comes off, and then the next wave starts, and literally. But let's just, a thousand. The problem is, I just put on my commentary this morning. What I do is I look at, okay, Brent's trading there up 251. I jot that down, and then I look at where WTI, and then the market's gap 20 cents, and then I have to redo it, and it's like I want to just freeze it just for a moment because it's moving so quick. But $1,046 for gas oil is $140. $1,046 a ton is $140 a barrel for gas oil right now. Jet fuel is even worse. I mean, not worse. That's wrong. Jet fuel is even
Higher.
more volatile. So what's called the regrade, which is the difference in Asia between a barrel of diesel, 10 ppm, parts per million, the sulfur content, road going diesel, versus jet fuel, that was at $40 a barrel this morning. Dollars a barrel. That's usually cents a barrel. And it's just traded at 60. And I mean, where does it go? And simply because, and I want to give you a sentence that my colleague Zamir mentioned, and I want everyone to kind of memorize it. Europe simply cannot source sufficient jet fuel on short notice, largely because the region remains heavily dependent on Middle East Gulf cargoes. 20% of the world's jet fuel comes out of the Middle East Gulf. And EU is, I'm not singling it out, but it's the kind of identifier for where markets are trading because people are scrambling around, and people are trying to hedge
Well,
physical
and,
shortage.
and not to call the politics of the EU on the table, but this is a direct
But
result of the negative product, negative um, place that refining has been given in the European Union, and the whole transition to a green economy. This is where that transition falls apart because your people haven't transitioned yet. Your government policies are pushing them in that direction. You've shut down refinery operations, so you can't produce your own products anymore. You're now relying on third-party markets for imports,
yeah,
and you have a major disruption. All of a sudden, you're now in a hot seat because it's not only with the gas, it's also with the natural gas. LNG prices continue to skyrocket it higher.
yeah, it's
Uh,
crazy. Yeah, at gas price. We've got a couple of webinars later on. Sorry, no, we've got a freight one today, and I'm hosting our oil and gas one on what's happening in the region tomorrow evening, UAE time. Sorry, it's a colleague calling me. I'll call you back, Steve. One sec. Let me just message Steve. This is live, people. Um, sorry. Yeah, this webinar on what's going on in the region, what the fallout is, and what the implications are. But yeah, I think slowly but surely, I think the market is pricing in what all this supply disruption means. We said it yesterday, and that it's still locked out, um, and that's the case. We did hear a significant um, an advancement of what could happen with shipping though through the Straits, and I'm actually looking forward for you talking me through this because let me just break it down just quick because I want Russ to really take over this one, and I'll show the map. So we heard last night that the U.S. States Development Finance Corporation, never heard of them before,
one
has
of
been ordered to provide
the Hydra
an.
of the U.S. government, yes.
It's what?
One of the many heads of the Hydra U.S. government, yes.
Okay. Um, they have been ordered to provide at a very reasonable price. political risk insurance and guarantees for all maritime trade traveling through the Gulf, and if necessary, a US naval escort. Now, that is really important because, look, as the market kind of absorbs that news, that means that products, oil products, crude oil, containers, dry cargo, I mean, cruise liners are not going to go through there, but ro-ros, anything else, fishing, pleasure craft, tugs, etc., can cross the Straits of Hormuz. The market, from a pricing point of view, kind of didn't. I mean, I think initially it kind of went, okay, all right, fine, fine. But I don't think it's really made any difference because I don't think people really know the details yet. Forget all that just for a moment. I want you to talk about practically what this means because you've got some history on this. Not that you were there in the 80s. We're not that old, Russ, but um, what it means for how it's actually going to work. So what I'm going to do, let me share my screen, which is our marine traffic screen. I shared this yesterday, a playback for what traffic looked like. And you can see here, you can see the screen okay, yeah?
Yep.
Here's the Straits of Hormuz. We mentioned this yesterday. Still zero going through. I've got, this is marine traffic, by the way, not Kepler. Well, part of the Kepler family. I've got all vessel filters active right now. Cargo, tankers, passenger craft, high speed. This is general cargo, containers, etc. So all of the key for all of these is down to the ship type. You can see them here. Red tankers, green everything else basically, and then blue passenger vessels and tugs and special craft, etc. Here I am. Hello. This is the what current traffic through the Straits of Hormuz. Nothing. Okay. Well, zero
Except for
apart from
Iranian flag
Iranian boats.
vessels.
Sorry.
Except for the Iranian flag vessels.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to overlay this. Let me just zoom in a little bit. I'm going to overlay this with a nautical chart. And excuse my ignorance, I had to ask JC, who's kind of the boss of marine traffic, like, how do I put a nautical chart on marine traffic? He was like, mate, how do you not know that? But I know it now. That's all that matters. So I'm going to overlay the nautical chart. Bear with me here, Rush. You're gonna. I mean, Raycon, EZ. Energy, West. You'll have to. We're all naive. None of us have been on a boat before, especially to the lengths you have. So I want you to talk us through what all this means. Just point of order first. Here's Corfacan. That's the Sharjah Emirate. Big STS area for bunkering. Here's Fujairah. Similar. There's the port of Fujairah. Attacked yesterday. To what degree? We're not sure. First of all, what do these numbers mean?
Well, that's your water depth at mean low water.
Okay,
So
that's the
how much
water depth.
water exists in the area? So you got 80 to 90 meters of water.
Right. So that's essentially if your draft of your boat to the depth that the boat goes at the deepest point into the water, that's fine. So that's nice and deep. Okay. Look, I'm going to leave the floor to you here and you tell me where to point me my little hand grabber thing.
So right there where your hand is grabbing, that's the Straits of Hormuz, and that is the traffic separation scheme. Now, a traffic separation scheme is a basically traffic lanes that have been designated by the IMO in order to help traffic move through high density areas safely. So it
Okay.
delineates where your northbound lane is, where your southbound lane is. You can see by the arrows on the chart, you have the northbound lane, which is on the north side. You have the southbound lane, the exiting from the south side.
Okay. What's this? Sorry. Obstruction.
Well, these are probably things that have sunk over the years, hundreds of years, and they
Okay.
registered them on a sonar survey, and so therefore they put them out to say, hey, there's something here that could cause you a problem if you put an anchor down for some reason, or if you're too deep for some reason, which in this case, you have to there are no ships that draw 70 meters of water, so therefore it's a bit of a it's good to know, but not really going to impede traffic flow.
Okay. And what is this Raycon here? This sort
So
of
a
circle.
Raycon is just a navigational beacon that sits on the shore or on a platform somewhere that gives out, when you look at it from a radar, it actually gives out a very pronounced signal on the radar screen. So you can actually use it to help yourself navigate through the area. And usually the
Okay.
Raycon is given out in a Morse code symbol, depending on what point it is within the traffic separation scheme or the traffic movement scheme.
Okay. Okay. So, sorry, I make no, I offer no apologies for the questions I'm going to ask here because I am a complete maritime novice. This traffic separation scheme, that's like, what do they call it? Uh, uh like when they say they shut one lane of the motorway and then it goes through like there's barriers and all that kind of stuff. So this is the right of traffic. What, who does this belong to? Like when I say like
Again,
who owns this?
these are internationally agreed to traffic lanes and presented by the IMO. So these are UN designated traffic separation schemes. From a who controls what. I think if you look at it from a 12 nautical mile limit, the southern traffic separation scheme is in Omani waters, and the northern traffic separation scheme borders Iranian water.
Right. So this being the closest point that in Iranian land, so this is 12 miles. So the northern route is Iranian waters, and that's where the IRGC is saying that's closed.
Well, no, IRGC is saying the entire thing is closed. So they're basically claiming that they can impede the safe passage of vessels, northbound or southbound, through the straits.
Right. Okay. Sorry, carry on.
And so if you can move the chart closer to just so we can get a picture of what the old traffic or the traffic lanes look like heading up into Iraq.
Right.
So if you
Let me
keep
come out
following that general direction.
here.
Yeah, you'll see here you have that island just off of the Iranian coast, and you'll see the extension of these traffic lanes with the northbound lane inside the island. Yeah, just keep following that right there. Boom, there's the northbound lane,
Yeah.
and the southbound lane is just south of that island.
So it's here.
Well, it's just south of the islands. Yeah,
Oh,
right.
sorry, sorry. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, I see. Excuse me. Okay. So if we were to carry
So
on,
in a
extrapolate.
normal world where there was no war going on, your ship would enter the Straits of Hormuz, and if it was going up to Iraq or to Kuwait, it'd follow that line right there and continue on its merry little way up the Persian Gulf, south of Karg Island, and enter into other traffic separation schemes, which are further up to allow for the safe passage of tankers into those export facilities.
Okay. Okay. Hang on, hang on, hang on, hang on. So, okay, you're here. Let's say your anchorage in Corfacan.
Hmm.
You get the signal. Okay, you can now go.
Yep.
So you come up here or down here is the path. That way, and
Hmm.
then so you are really close to Iranian territory there.
Yes, I mean you're basically inside Iranian territory on that northern lane.
What's to stop? Okay, so say if a boat went,
So
fuck this.
so now let's rewind back to a bit of history here to
Okay,
go to the direction you're going to go. So during the 1980s, there was the tanker war, and this was when Iran and Iraq were at war. And basically, to hurt each other economically, both sides started striking crude tankers or product tankers to inflict economic damage. During that, and it was an indiscriminate attacks. It didn't matter what flag, as long as it was a tanker, it was under attack. In that process, the United States made an agreement with Saudi Arabia and Kuwait to reflag tankers to an American flag. This would allow the U.S. Navy to escort American ships. So this is the first question I have with the announcement that was made by Trump yesterday. Under that program, it had to be an American flag with an American captain in order to have the protection of the U.S. Navy.
okay,
And so at that point, there were active escorts of all sorts of vessels that were reflagged and escorted out of and into the Persian Gulf by U.S. Navy, and I believe the UK also provided some escort services during that time.
okay.
Now, the routing that was done was to keep it away from the that separation scheme there. That as you
Yeah,
leave, basically we would, the ships would basically head down towards Sharjah as they entered the Straits of Hormuz, would deviate southbound towards Sharjah, um,
Charger down
yeah,
here.
down there, and then cut south of that island, which is kind of right there, that island there.
Okay,
And so that's how the convoys would route around the issues. Now, back then, there weren't as many rigs as there are today. And traffic density was a bit lower than it is today because at that time Dubai was not the flourishing economic oasis that it has become. But it was just the Hilton and the Masala Beach Hotel.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
But nevertheless, that's how the routing was done. It was kept everything as far as south in deep water from Iran as it could. And to be honest, in the Persian Gulf, you have fairly deep water all the way up to Kuwait. I mean, when I was sailing on ULCCs back in the day, uh,
yeah.
we would be fully loaded and transit out without much of an issue.
Okay. So, okay, how long have this, what do you call it, the traffic separation scheme here that's identified here?
Yep.
How long has that been in place?
I believe they've been in place since the 80s.
So was it remapped?
No, I mean those have remained. I mean, as far as I can recall. You know,
Okay.
I was only starting to sail in 1990, so before then, don't know, but at least I know in 1991 these separation schemes were there.
Right, gotcha. And okay, so if you're a tanker operator right now, you're a master. What's to stop you going, sod this? I'm just gonna hug the coast round here.
Nothing stops you from doing it because, again, if you look at the water depth, that you have plenty of water depth.
Yeah.
There's a bit of shoaling as you look at that Raycon. There's a bit of a shoaling just south of the traffic separation scheme.
Shoaling?
Shoaling, that light blue dots that are there just south of the traffic separation scheme on the northern tip of Iran. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
these ones here. Okay.
Yeah. So you have a bit of shoaling there that you have to be worried about. But no, you can transit through there, and at times, that was done.
Sorry, shoaling is what? Just
It's just
some.
shallow water. It's like reefs, rocks,
Okay.
maybe sandbars. It could be a lot of things that cause that.
Okay. Okay.
But so you do have, so you can transit south, but you're still, the unfortunate thing is that if you look at the northern tip of Oman and the
Yeah.
southern coast of Iran, there is nothing that gives you any shielding whatsoever. And that's the
So
problem.
this is visible from the naked eye. If you're here and
Uh,
you're hug,
it depends on how bad the sand is, but yeah, in the air, the haze in the air, it is visible with the naked eye.
so this is I mean, I don't know how to do this. What's the distance between here and there?
Roughly, that is off the top of my head. I want to say it's about 25 nautical miles, 20 nautical miles.
Okay. Okay.
So
All right.
your problem that you have is that you're going to be if you try to skirt the traffic separation and hug the Omani coast, the problem you're going to have is you're still a big broad target because you're going in ballast to some guy on the shore with a missile launcher.
Jesus.
Now, the complication of if you start bringing in U.S. naval vessels to escort, the U.S. Navy has to be pretty damn sure that they have eliminated the abilities of the Iranians to mount a anti-ship missile system across that whole region as you move around the Straits of Hormuz. Because when you do escort service, tankers top speed is going to be about 15, 16 knots, maybe 14 knots fully loaded.
Right.
In light and ballast, they can probably get up to 17 knots, depending on the ship and how hard they want to push their engines.
Okay.
U.S. naval destroyers operate effectively between 25 and 35 knots
Right.
because they can shake and move and they can do a lot of things to help protect themselves from any type of an attack. When you're
Okay.
doing convoy duty, you basically have to go as fast as the slowest ship.
Right. Got you.
So when
Uh,
you put that into perspective, you're basically putting, the U.S. would be putting a lot of naval assets into a high risk situation because they will be open and exposed to any type of an attack from an Iranian missile, Iranian boat, if there are any boats left, or Iranian drones.
okay. But when you're talking about a naval escort, is it like when Kim Kardashian walks into a restaurant and she's got like bodyguards around her like this? Or are we talking, how close are we talking to the tanker?
It depends on where they're at in the transiting. I mean, so there's going to be visual range between the tankers and the U.S. and the naval escorts.
Okay.
So that's going to be there. You're also going to have probably some outside point defense ships as well.
So
Uh,
it would just be the Navy would be strategically positioned like I don't know. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, exactly. There'd be somebody positioned on the north side, or probably in the pink zone of the traffic separate between the north and southern lanes to
but
provide.
surely they wouldn't go down here. They would move
No,
this down here.
no. They if they're going to do the escorts like they did back in the 80s and the 90s, they would basically put the outbound escorts would form up in just off of Dubai and Sajra,
Okay. Yeah, here. Okay.
like where all those red dots are.
Yeah.
That's kind of where the staging area was way back in the day. And from there, you would get your slot in the escort, and then you would be told proceed at this speed, at this course. You're following ship so and so.
Okay. God alive.
But again, it's something that the Navy, the U.S. Navy, would have to be pretty damn sure that they've degraded the Iranian military to a point where they feel safe of moving a multi-million dollar naval asset through the straits consistently.
Okay. I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? This is what's fascinating, and thanks for that because that's really important. Uh, I mean, like I said, 99.9% of people will probably go, "I've not got a clue what any of this means." That gives us an idea of what it practically means. But to the announcement that was made when what did he say? Uh, the US DFC Development Finance Corp has been ordered to provide political risk insurance and guarantees, and if necessary, US naval escort. But you,
But
but there's no timeline on that
no,
yet.
there's no timeline. And to be fully honest, I mean, great idea, but typically those insurance policies, and somebody can correct me if I'm fully wrong, but typically they've been assigned only if you're a U.S. company, U.S. assets, not foreign assets.
I see.
So I don't know, again, not seeing what this program is going to look like, just his tweet.
Yeah,
My first question would be, okay, how does that work if you're going to go insure a Singaporean flag tanker, as an example?
right.
And you're not, I mean, because these, funds are there earmarked for typically American assets and American ships, if assuming it's an American ship. I mean, yes, there are some U.S. ships that are in there, but nevertheless, these are the questions that I would have around this is that how is this really going to work? Because it's the same thing with the escort service. I mean, the escorts were provided only if the ship was an American flag ship. Not just we're just
Okay.
going to do it for everybody. So not saying that it can't be done that way. Don't get me wrong. It can be that we're going to do it whatever we want to do because that's the politics of the time and the necessity of the time.
Yeah.
Um, but God forbid a U.S. Navy destroyer gets hit by an Exocet missile, and now you got to explain why we have a multi-million dollar cruiser sinking in the Persian Gulf.
Well, I mean, when we get there, I suppose, uh, it's what we try and do here on the Smoking Barrel is try and explain as much as we can. It's tough, but I'm lucky that I've got Russ, who's got absolute personal experience with all this. But look, I mean, we'll record tomorrow. Who knows? We might have a bit more clarity on things. This is a good step. It's actually I'd probably say it was probably part of the plan. Is that fair? It was probably that this was prepared beforehand. It's not something that came up in the last day or so.
I would think that probably the escort was part of the plan. The insurance, I don't think was. And I'm just saying that because, when you look at the assets that were deployed to the region, there was a lot of destroyers, a lot of cruisers that were brought in from the U.S. Navy.
Right.
And so with those assets in place, plus on top of that, the air assets, you could effectively work escort duties because I'm sure there was a thought that, okay, how do we ensure shipping remains operational? We don't shut off oil supplies to the world. We'll
Yeah.
provide escorts. Okay, so we'll put the assets in place in order to make escorts happen.
Because he
Now,
said, yeah, because he said last night, didn't he, that what did he say? He said he knows it's probably going to be oil prices that are higher for longer, but we can live with that.
yeah, well, I mean, and again, as we talked about yesterday, there's plenty of spare capacity in the market right now. There's a lot of oil available in the market. So, yes, structure has gone bid. You have flat price at 84, $85. Okay, that's wonderful. But there were a lot of floating barrels. There were a lot of unsold West African crude cargoes, Mediterranean crude cargoes that were unsold. And we're in the midst of turnarounds.
Yeah,
So you don't have that at least stress on the demand system just yet. But again, we're seeing it on the distillate, we're seeing it on the nat gas, seeing it on jet fuel, which are far more sensitive to what's going on than anything else.
absolutely. All right, mate. Look, flat price largely where it is, 83, 85, down a little bit from where we were. Gas oil still above 1,000. April's now 1,010. So that spread is coming in a little bit. A dollar still 133, largely flat. Look, thanks to everyone who's reached out. Again, I really appreciate it. We're all okay. We're trying our best and just keep calm and carry on. That's the British way, Mr. Mannering. Um, but no, we'll go again tomorrow. I mean, I suppose someone said to me, he said, Stan, when you start only doing your podcast once a week again is when I think things will get back to normal. So for the time being, we'll be daily. I'm not going anywhere. My parents were supposed to fly out today back to London. That was cancelled, but they're looking like they're going back on Sunday. So fingers crossed. You wouldn't think it's Ramadan with what's going on, but anyone who's celebrating, who's honoring the holy month, Ramadan Kareem. And I hope everyone's all right. We'll be back tomorrow. Like, comment, subscribe. Let us know if you've got any specific questions. I cannot thank my co-host enough. He is the yin to my yang, and I'm a bit of a noisy yang. So he's the calm, sophisticated one. Just tell Mila that.
Know about sophistication. But anyway, thank you all for
Yeah.
tuning in, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Click like, comment, and subscribe, and stay safe.